let's approach the question a different way. Let's suppose you're offered $20 per megawatt hour for some additional power. What are you going to do? So one way to think about this is suppose that you have these power plants, this portfolio of power plants, and each of them has 100 megawatts available. And you go to the India Electricity Exchange, and the current price is $20 per megawatt hour. What can you do? Well, let's go to our supply stack and see. We have an offer for, there's an offer outstanding on the India Electricity Exchange for power at $20 per megawatt hour. What's your response? Well, it's certainly not going to do demand reduction. That's $80 per megawatt hour. Peaker's too expensive. What about baseload? Baseload fuel costs are $22.50 an hour. So you're not going to run baseload at a $20 price because you'd be losing money on each megawatt hour you generated. How about solar? Well, you would run solar because for those 100 megawatt hours, your existing plant, solar plant in your portfolio, costs you zero variable cost to run, but it's going to make you $20 a megawatt hour. So the answer is, the answer to the question is, you would operate your solar plant at a full 100 megawatts for the hour to generate the 100 megawatt hours of electricity. It would cost you zero to run the plant for an additional 100 to generate an additional 100 megawatt hours, but it would make you $20 per megawatt hour. None of your other sources are worth running at $20 per megawatt hour. So we've looked at this choice about how to use your portfolio from a couple of different directions. We've asked which of your units would you run first if you had a chance to sell some additional electricity. We've also asked what would you do if you were offered a set price for some additional electricity. And in both cases, it turned out to be your best option to use your portfolio according to the marginal cost of generation. If you allocate your generation assets according to the marginal cost of generation, and the set of marginal costs of generation we call the supply stack. If you allocate your generation according to the marginal cost of generating the next units of electricity, that's going to make the most money from your portfolio. And in fact, allocating plants according to marginal cost is such an important idea in management of generation assets that we have a name for it. We call it merit order. So allocating units in terms of marginal cost is allocating them in terms of merit order. So if you think about different levels of demand that might occur over the year, so that'll mean a different price that'll be paid for electricity at different times in the year. Responding to demand in marginal cost order is the most profitable and the most cost effective. So one way to think about it, to remember, is low marginal cost plants have great merit. So we want to use them first before we use the higher marginal cost plants. So if that's true, if using low marginal cost plants first is the most profitable allocation of these units, why might we see violations of merit order? Why might we see the use of plants out of marginal cost order, the use of high marginal cost plants before lower marginal cost plants? One reason might be transmission constraints. We might find that we have a transmission corridor that's congested, and if that's true, we might end up using a high-cost plant here more than we otherwise would, because it's hard to get power from a low-cost plant here over to where the high-cost plant is operating, and so this would be a violation of merit order due to a transmission constraint. We might have regional or state dispatch. We might have decisions about which power plants to run being made in different regions or different states, in which case this state might be allocated in its merit order, this state might be allocating in its merit order, and we would end up having some high-cost power plants over in this state run while lower-cost plants were available in this state. So if they weren't joining their merit order together, you could see out-of-merit order dispatch of power plants from two regions. Then there's operational flexibility. So the minimum capacity factor for a nuclear plant is on the order of 80 or 90%. You wouldn't want to build a nuclear plant unless you thought you were going to run it at 90% capacity factor. And its operational flexibility is very, very low. So suppose you needed to make a quick change to your generation portfolio. Even if the nuclear plant were the lowest marginal cost, in abstract terms, because it ramps so slowly and is so costly to ramp, its true marginal cost would be much higher, and you wouldn't dispatch the nuclear plant, even though you would think of its marginal cost as being low. Because it's only over a short time, the ramping costs are too great, and it would swamp the benefit of generating the power from the nuclear plant. So a slow ramp rate, minimum capacity factors, things like that could cause you to violate merit order. What's another factor that might cause us to allocate plants in against merit order? Suppose that some of our plants were under long-term take-or-pay contracts. A long-term contract price is determined by the long-term levelized cost of energy from a plant rather than its marginal cost. And so if you were to allocate your generating resources according to a long-run take-or-pay contract, you might end up allocating your plants in a way that violated merit order and meant increased cost of generation over what you could have had you allocated the plants in merit order. All right, so let's go back to the supply stack just for the example. If we think about needing an additional 100 megawatts of power, then the first thing you would do is look to your supply stack. And according to the supply stack, solar has my lowest marginal cost. So if I need 100 megawatts, I would run my solar for the additional 100 megawatts. If I needed 150, what would I do? Well, we'd step right up the merit order stack and choose 50 megawatt hours from our baseload power plant. And if I needed another 100, then I would finish out my 100 from my baseload and jump up to peaker. And so in this way, by walking up the supply stack, I'm always choosing the lowest cost way of generating the electricity, the amount of electricity I need.